We are just days away from the next dual position allocation. 3 times a year, players can gain a secondary position in AFL Fantasy SuperCoach and Dream Team. They do need to play 35% of game time in this new position. And as the year goes on, they do need to play and qualify for more games because it's over the totality of the season, not just over that 6-week block of games. So as we head towards the opening of round 12 and the end of the round 11 lockout, I thought I'd tell you a couple of guys that you can lock in that are absolutely getting DPP, some guys that are on the ledge, and a couple I'm just going to rule them way out of consideration. Get that out of your mind. That could we see it? I'm just going to rule that out for you. But let's hit the guys that are definitely going to get it. There's one that we're all very keen to know, is it going to happen? And here on this video, the coaches panel, we're happy to call it and say Connor Rozee is going to pick up defensive status at the end of this round. Currently sitting at 58% time in this defensive position. That's well and truly safe. That even if Ken Hinkley, Josh Carr, David Koch, whoever's calling the strings down for the pair, it's just well far gone because 35% is the threshold. So even if he does play a full game in the midfield, which we saw a little bit with no Jason Horne-Francis in the side, it's safe, it's clear, it's happening. This is awesome. We have now gained for us in a couple of days' time a genuine top-line, top-tier defender that if you've had him as a value option in your midfield to start the year, my goodness me, this has turned out beautifully for you. You're going to get him back on field after Port Adelaide's round 12 bye. From round 13 onwards, you can pick him on field in your defensive line. It's awesome. It is great. If you're not an owner, I still think this is someone you want to own because he has shown now, really since moving into this spot over the last 6 weeks, he's a dominant 110 plus performer. I want every stock I could get on him if I wasn't an owner already. This is by far the biggest name ad we are going to get, the most relevant, and the one that's going to add the biggest change in the game. Connor Rozee, picking up defense, lock it in. The next one I'm confident to lock in is that Richmond Tiger Sam Banks. He's going to also pick up defensive status. Pretty similar percentage of time in defense, 54% in that spot. He's looked really good, had some decent scores, probably not classic relevant for us. Certainly, though, if you're playing a draft format of SuperCoach or AFL Fantasy, he's been right in that spot and has popped a little bit without the presence of Jaden Short over the last couple of weeks. If that maintains, A, that's not good for Classic, especially short holders, but 2, those that are there, I think it's going to be a spot. So regardless, Sam Banks, he's picking up defensive status. He's not the last guy that I think is going to pick up defensive status. We'll throw a Daniel Turner into the mix of that as well. Disco Turner's done a really nice job at times playing some spots forward of the ball late last year, but he's coming back and he's doing some nice stuff in defense. I'm pretty happy to give Disco this opportunity. Not relevant for our teams at all, but a relevant necessary gain nonetheless. Really, let's be honest. Connor, and then we're dropping drastically away into draft territories only, and it's got to be a pretty deep draft to make you want to be considering Disco Daniel Turner. We'll get someone that adds midfield status, which again is probably the least relevant of all of them, but adds some squad versatility, especially in draft, and that is Kozzy Pickett. He's been exceptional since moving into this midfield. He's about 46% now up. So much like, in fact, all of these guys that I'm listing that are locks are well and truly over that 40%. Even with a drastic role change, they're not losing out. Kozzy's done a really nice job. He's been even a relevant pick that if you went there a handful of weeks ago, pretty much since that Fremantle game onwards, he's been really, really strong. Not worth trading into in Classic now. You're paying fair value, not value. But I'm happy to recommend, not just recommend, state he's picking up midfield status. Corey Wagner's having that happen to him as well, defensive eligible, playing through the mid. With no Young, they've changed that scope and look a little bit. Bolton spent some time through there. I don't think anyone's picking Wagner at all outside of draft. The defensive status is what makes him valuable, but Corey Wagner adding midfield status at 44%. And then the other gain is a forward that I'm confident to call, and that's Aaron Francis. He's kind of floated forward and back a little bit, but 78% time forward. That's well and truly both from a games and a percentage. Past the threshold, he's going to get it. Even in a draft, you're not looking at it, let's be polite, but it's sitting in that spot. So of all the ones that I'm bullish to say it is happening, there's really only one that is uber relevant for us, and that is Connor Rozee. Let's talk about a couple that may just get there, but to do it, they need a pretty big dynamic shift this coming week. Number one is Oscar Allen. He did go forward last week, so that's hurt him a little bit. He's currently sitting at the 31% of defensive time. So he's got to get deployed back and basically play the entirety of the match back inside that defensive 50. If they're happy to keep letting guys like Merrett and Brock do all this kind of key position work, it might not happen. He looked pretty decent forward of the ball to get the Eagles their first win, so I'm not too sure this one's going to land. But if he goes back and plays a full game in defense, then maybe we will see that. The other that is a higher percent, and I think we would love it to happen, let's will it over the line, but I'm not too sure it's going to. That is Will Ashcroft. It's a possibility that he gets forward status. He's at 32%, so he's near the threshold. But that's 32% over the year. So it's not just over this last couple of weeks. Back in the midfield, I think it was about a 55% midfield ratio last week. So he's got to basically play as a forward for the entirety of this round for it to land. And I do not like the chances of it. Is it possible? Technically. Is it likely? I'm going to say it's unlikely. But if it were to land, it would be an awesome addition, because that would, again, add another potential top line forward. I think Will's a 90 plus guy across our formats with comfort. And if you could land that in the forward line, it adds another level for us, another name, another consideration. Let's all hope and pray it lands, because I would love Will to be eligible as a forward. I do not think he's going to join his brother in that DPP game. He's going to hold that midfield status. But look, let's pray that in. And then there's a couple of names that I just want to give you straight out that are just not going to qualify for dual position gain as much as we would either like or wish. Number one is a Cooper Simpson. He'll play his third game this week, played in defense and looked really good. By the way, he's my number one downgrade option across the formats this week if you are needing some cash in the classic format. But just not enough game time. Only the 3 games. Remember, as the season goes on, while the percentage of time in a position doesn't change, it's a percentage to really the amount of games they've played. 3 games is just not enough. It might have been enough getting you into the round 6 positional changes, but for these ones heading to round 12, it's just not going to be enough. If you can hold the spot, he might get there at the pre-round 18 DPP gains, but sorry, Cooper. Good roll, but just not enough time in that defensive spot. The other one is Jordan De Goey. Injuries have kind of hurt him this year and will ultimately cost him from getting forward status at 68% time forward at the moment. So well and truly at the threshold, but just the number of game criteria he has not been able to hit for us. So again, maybe if he can get himself back to some health and some fitness, we might get him at the pre-round 18 DPP allocation, but it's not going to happen this one. The criteria of games is not enough. The percentage of time in game is qualifying. So it's a good number. It's positive. I think we should see him get it at round 18 if he plays a couple more games between now and the end of round 17. And then there's a couple that are in the 20% threshold and are spending enough time in different spots, but it's just not going to be enough. Nazaya Wanganeen-Miller, 20% mid. Again, it's not going to really help us anyway, given he's got the valuable defensive position. Again, not enough. Maybe at round 18 if they deploy him a bit more perma mid, but it's not going to help us. There's a couple of forwards that we've seen and hoped for in the community, but it's not going to happen. 25% forward for Touk Miller. Touk is not picking up forward status. It is not happening. Again, we're talking about a Will Ashcroft at 32, where it's got to be an entirety of a game to be a chance to get over the 35%. 25%, It's just not happening. Zach Merrett's at 27%. There was a small glimmer that it might have happened a fortnight ago, but he was back, I think, at over a 80% centre bounce rate against the Bulldogs. He'd sort of start at centre bounce and then go forward. Where a player starts at centre bounce is a pretty considerable piece of the percentage pie, according to Champion Data, who ultimately manage these positional allocations. So there was a window and a glimmer where maybe it might have happened. Again, we needed big game time. Last week's Bulldogs game just kind of squashed that out. And then the other is a Marcus Bontempelli. Again, 23%. Since coming back from injury, there was a minute there, like literally a minute only, where we thought it could land, but it's not. And I don't expect any of those names to pick it up at round 18 either, barring a drastic shift in their team structure and makeup, which I can't see coming specifically from a Bont or a Zach Merrett. I just can't see that. Tuka can't see that. And Naz, it's a potential, but it's gaining mid. So really, who cares? So to wrap it up, what's coming? One big gain that you can lock in Connor, Rozee, and one that's a possible, but I'd put on the unlikely side in Will Ashcroft. Not the greatest DPP gains that I'm projecting. I'd like to be surprised. I don't think we're getting any shockers. It's a long time since I've ever been shocked by a dual position in-season change. Champion Data have done a pretty good job at communicating that now and making it clear what qualifies for DPP change or not. So I don't see any shocks coming. It's Connor, Rozee, and probably not much else that's of value to us at this stage. But come on, Will Ashcroft. Let's get another name in there. Hey, thanks so much for tuning in. We hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, make sure you subscribe to the channel. If you haven't already, we're dropping episodes all the time here on the channel. A SuperCoach focused and an AFL focused trade target episode. They are on this channel for you to go and check out. We do that every single week, my top 10 trade targets for those formats, and then joined by various members of the panel and the fantasy footy community at large with our strategy session, talking through all the big decisions and dilemma points of the round to come. That is also available on the channel. Make sure you subscribe, get those notifications on, and like this video. Hey, thanks for tuning in. We hope for this upcoming round of football, it is kind to your fantasy football side, and we'll be back with you again early next week, talking all things fantasy footy.